On January 17, 2010, a man was found dead under mysterious circumstances in a quiet Dubai hotel room. That man was Sami Ibrahimi, a high-ranking Hamas commander whose death unraveled a story of espionage, betrayal, and international intrigue. The body lay neatly on the white hotel sheets, air conditioning humming faintly above. There were no signs of forced entry, no shattered glass, no blood. Officially, he had suffered a heart attack. Unofficially, the whispers began immediately. Investigators stared at the corpse, puzzled. His passport was intact, his phone silent, his suitcase packed with clothes folded militarily crisp. But his life had ended suddenly, cleanly, with surgical precision that bore the fingerprints of a professional hand. Dubai police traced his steps back to his arrival 2 days earlier. Surveillance cameras revealed him checking in, alone. The footage captured only shadows behind him, silhouettes that slipped through lobbies, elevators, and corridors, leaving no trace of entry or exit. Within hours, rumors spread through intelligence circles. This was no random death. This was an operation, coldly planned and flawlessly executed. In hushed tones, one name surfaced again and again, whispered like a secret too dangerous to say aloud. Mossad. The Israeli intelligence service had struck before, leaving trails of mystery across Middle Eastern capitals. But this killing in Dubai was different. It carried symbolism, warning, and consequence. Why was Sami Ibrahimi targeted here now, and with such unnerving precision? The world demanded answers. Sami Ibrahimi was not just another militant. He was the architect of Hamas's underground empire, a shadow network of tunnels stretching beneath Gaza, smuggling weapons, fighters, and cash. His death was more than personal. It was structural, collapsing a subterranean kingdom built on secrecy. Every intelligence agency in the Middle East watched the incident with trembling attention. For Israel, Ibrahimi was a phantom threat, responsible for rocket arsenals and kidnappings. For Hamas, he was indispensable. His assassination signaled not a skirmish but a seismic shift. International journalists scrambled for narratives. Was this the spark of a new covert war? Was Dubai, a hub of finance and tourism, now an espionage chessboard? The Emirates' image as a safe, neutral ground suddenly fractured under suspicion. The stakes spiraled outward. Iran had funded Ibrahimi's projects, Hezbollah had trained his men, and Qatar had provided cover. His death disrupted alliances, carefully woven across borders. With one hotel room corpse, the fragile balance of power tilted dangerously. Western capitals reacted with thinly veiled calculation. Washington analyzed satellite feeds. London questioned the use of forged passports. European nations feared retaliation. This was no local vendetta. It was a reminder that assassinations were not relics of the Cold War. They remained policy. And so the question was no longer whether Sami Ibrahimi had been targeted. The question was what tremors his absence would unleash. Could Hamas absorb the loss? Could Mossad escape exposure? And who among allies and rivals would dare to move next? Who ordered the strike on Sami Ibrahimi? Was it the Prime Minister's office in Tel Aviv? Or a clandestine desk buried deep within Mossad's headquarters, staffed by men and women whose names will never appear in public record? Why was Dubai chosen as the killing ground? Was it because of its gleaming anonymity, its transient travelers, its constant flow of businessmen, tourists, and shadows? Or was it because Ibrahimi believed he was untouchable there, lulled by false security? Who forged the passports that slipped through European airports without detection? Were they state resources or contracted specialists? Phantoms who erased themselves after missions? How many governments quietly knew, and how many pretended outrage while secretly admiring the craft? And what did Ibrahimi know in his final hours? Did he sense the surveillance? Did he notice the same man in the hotel lobby twice, or the subtle hesitation of the clerk checking his papers? Did fear ever register? These questions are not merely curiosities. They are fractures in the walls of international order, cracks that expose the machinery of power. Behind them, one truth looms. Assassination is both message and method, and in Ibrahimi's case, the message was thunderous. Sami Ibrahimi was born in 1963 in the narrow, dust-choked alleys of Khan Yunis refugee camp, Gaza. His earliest memories were of barbed wire, ration lines, and the low drone of Israeli surveillance planes circling above, shaping his childhood with unease. His family was large, rooted in displacement. Parents who carried the trauma of 1948 Nakba instilled in him stories of lost orchards and vanished homes. Hunger was constant, yet dignity clung stubbornly to their dinner table, even when bread was scarce. Education became both an escape and a weapon. Teachers described him as sharp-eyed, with a tendency to question authority. He memorized scripture with fervor, but also devoured contraband political pamphlets, his mind a battlefield of faith and ideology. The boy grew into adolescence under curfews and raids. Each midnight knock on neighbors' doors reinforced his sense of persecution. Friends disappeared into detention centers. The occupation was no abstraction. It was daily humiliation, breeding anger that calcified into lifelong defiance. By 16, Sami carried himself with unusual seriousness. Peers played football in dusty fields, but he sketched maps of tunnels and crossings, studying terrain like a general in training. His world was not games, it was survival wrapped in strategy. Family responsibilities weighed heavily. As the eldest son, he often bartered for food in local markets, negotiating with sharp-tongued merchants. Those early exchanges taught him the currency of patience, persuasion, and quiet intimidation, skills that later defined his political maneuvering. Neighbors recalled his quiet intensity. Unlike others who boasted, Sami observed. He cataloged insults, betrayals, and favors, building an invisible ledger of debts and loyalties. His silence was rarely empty. It was calculation disguised as modest restraint. When war erupted in 1982, the young man was already prepared. While others reeled at the invasion of Lebanon, Sami interpreted it as confirmation of destiny. Conflict was not temporary. It was permanent. He would dedicate his life to mastering its rules. Sami Ibrahimi's ideology hardened in the furnace of Gaza's blockades. He embraced Islamism not only as religion, but as blueprint for governance and resistance. He saw Hamas as the vessel of redemption, blending faith, nationalism, and militant strategy into an inseparable creed. His speeches revealed contradictions. In public, he was fiery, invoking scripture with rolling cadence. In private, he spoke sparingly, preferring action to rhetoric. Associates said he disliked flamboyance. Power, for Sami, was best exercised invisibly, like a current beneath calm water. Despite his austere reputation, Sami nurtured quirks that puzzled his comrades. He meticulously collected watches, favoring Swiss mechanisms. He claimed time was the most valuable currency, often reminding lieutenants that revolutions failed when schedules slipped. Punctuality, he declared, was resistance. Food was another obsession. He abhorred waste. Meals were Spartan: lentils, bread, olives. Yet he insisted on sharing them communally, reinforcing unity among his circle. In moments of tension, breaking bread together served as ritual, a symbolic reminder of their collective struggle. He distrusted technology. While younger fighters embraced encrypted devices, Sami scribbled notes on scraps of paper, burning them after reading. He believed machines were traps designed by foreign hands, and he preferred whispers over wires, couriers over calls. Paradoxically, he was fascinated by history, especially biographies of generals. From Salah al-Din to Napoleon, he underlined passages obsessively, extracting lessons about patience, deception, and audacity. His worldview was not narrow dogma. It was a tapestry woven from theology and strategy. Among comrades, Sami Ibrahimi was called Al-Far, the mouse. The nickname hinted at his ability to vanish underground, moving unseen through Gaza's labyrinth of tunnels. To his men, he was elusive, unpredictable, and always 2 steps ahead of pursuit. Israeli intelligence gave him another title, the Engineer of Shadows. Files marked with his code name painted him as the architect of a subterranean state, a man who built not monuments, but networks, invisible to satellites. To enemies, he was myth and menace. Yet Sami's self-image diverged. He referred to himself humbly as a guardian of continuity. He believed he was not leading a movement but preserving its momentum, a custodian rather than a conqueror. Legacy mattered more than personal glory in his eyes. Still, anecdotes betray flickers of pride. When asked once why Israel feared him so profoundly, Sami smiled faintly and said, "Because they cannot see me, but I always see them." For a man obsessed with shadows, that was his truest reflection. The turning point arrived during the First Intifada in 1987. Street protests erupted, stones clashed with rifles, and the air thickened with tear gas. For Sami Ibrahimi, resistance shifted from theory to necessity. He moved from observer to organizer, quietly orchestrating demonstrations. His charisma, though understated, drew followers. He recruited through mosques, framing activism as divine duty. Unlike hot-headed peers, Sami demanded discipline. He emphasized secrecy, structure, and chain of command, transforming spontaneous unrest into organized defiance. His reputation grew steadily, silently. By the early 1990s, Hamas leadership noticed him. While others clamored for recognition, Sami worked in the background, building tunnels, managing finances, coordinating with external sponsors. His strength was logistics, turning ideology into infrastructure, translating vision into tangible survival strategies. Gradually, his influence expanded beyond militants. He engaged with local political figures, negotiating ceasefires, arranging prisoner exchanges. These early forays into politics revealed his pragmatism. Sami believed victory required both battlefield endurance and diplomatic maneuvering, a duality many of his peers resisted. His rise was not theatrical, but inevitable. When Hamas split internally between radical and cautious wings, Sami bridged factions. He was not the loudest voice, but the most dependable. In a world addicted to spectacle, his quiet competence commanded authority. The story of Sami Ibrahimi cannot be separated from the broader conflict that defined his existence, the long war between Israel and Palestinian resistance movements. It was not merely a territorial dispute, but a grinding struggle shaped by religion, identity, and generational trauma. From the Six-Day War in 1967 to the repeated Gaza conflicts of the 2000s, violence became cyclical. Each clash created martyrs. Each death seeded new recruits. For every rocket intercepted, another child grew into adulthood. Convinced resistance was destiny, the First Intifada marked the eruption of grassroots defiance, while the Second Intifada transformed resistance into militarized insurgency. Suicide bombings, rocket barrages, targeted assassinations, every method was deployed. Israelis lived under perpetual threat. Palestinians lived under perpetual siege. Both sides carried scars. Hamas rose in this crucible, contrasting itself with Fatah's negotiations. Where diplomacy faltered, militancy thrived. Tunnels replaced treaties, and armed struggle became both practical tool and symbolic expression. Within this environment, figures like Sami thrived, bridging faith with clandestine warfare strategies. Global powers framed the conflict through self-interest. Washington aligned with Israel as strategic ally, while Tehran and Damascus empowered groups like Hamas to counterbalance. Gaza became not just battleground, but proxy stage for rivals playing with Palestinian lives like chess pieces. For ordinary Gazans, however, the conflict was daily suffocation, electricity cutoffs, border closures, drone surveillance. Sami's networks offered both relief and peril, smuggling food and medicine alongside rockets. In Gaza's paradox, survival and militancy often arrived in the same clandestine shipment. The broader conflict was thus not a single war, but a continuum, a landscape where truces expired like fruit in the sun. Within this cycle, Sami's underground empire symbolized endurance, defiance, and inevitability. His death struck at that enduring symbolism. Israel viewed Sami Ibrahimi as an existential threat. To Jerusalem, his tunnels were arteries of terror, carrying rockets and militants beneath fortified borders. Eliminating him was not optional, but strategic necessity, a move designed to weaken Hamas and reassert deterrence through precision assassination. The United States echoed Israel's stance publicly, branding Hamas a terrorist organization. Yet behind closed doors, Washington worried about escalation. Each targeted killing risked wider war, threatening fragile alliances across the region. Still, intelligence was quietly shared, creating an unspoken partnership. Iran stood on the opposite end. Tehran financed Hamas operations, providing weapons, training, and political cover. For Iran, figures like Sami were investments in asymmetric warfare, tools to harass Israel and extend influence without direct confrontation. His survival was strategic capital. Qatar played dual roles. Officially, it mediated between Hamas and international actors. Unofficially, it funneled cash into Gaza, often routed toward tunnel construction. For Doha, Sami represented both problem and asset, a man who could destabilize while also serving as bargaining chip. Egypt's position was uniquely conflicted. Cairo despised Hamas as an extension of the Muslim Brotherhood, yet could not sever ties completely. The tunnels Sami engineered often breached Egyptian territory, forcing Egyptian intelligence to walk a tightrope between suppression and reluctant tolerance. Europe projected outrage after his assassination, particularly over the forged passports that implicated British, Irish, and German identities. Yet their anger was more about sovereignty violations than sympathy for Hamas. Behind diplomatic protests lay grudging acknowledgement of Mossad's operational brilliance. Regional monarchies like Saudi Arabia remained cautious, officially denouncing Israeli aggression while privately relieved. To them, Hamas threatened regional order as much as Israel did. Sami's elimination, though controversial, removed a destabilizing figure whose alliances with Iran were viewed as dangerous contagion. Thus, the death of one man in a Dubai hotel room rippled through capitals worldwide. Each nation calculated gain or loss, friend or foe. In this chessboard of power, Sami was never just a commander. He was a symbol of alignment and defiance. Sami Ibrahimi mattered because he was more than a commander. He was an engineer of continuity. In Gaza's fragile ecosystem, leaders often perished suddenly. Sami ensured that tunnels, finances, and weapons outlived individuals. His empire was designed to survive decapitation strikes and leadership voids. His tunnels were not just military assets. They were lifelines. They smuggled medicine, fuel, and food during blockades. To Gazans, Sami embodied resourcefulness. He transformed claustrophobic underground spaces into arteries of resistance and survival, binding the community's daily endurance to his strategic vision. For Hamas leadership, Sami provided something rare: predictability. He delivered results quietly, without flamboyance or self-promotion. When leaders debated strategy, his presence was grounding. He represented stability in an organization often torn between radical impulses and political pragmatism. To Israel, however, he was a nightmare in human form. His genius lay not in public incitement, but in logistics. For every rocket fired, there was a hidden supply line. For every kidnapped soldier, there was a tunnel he had envisioned years earlier. Internationally, his reputation extended beyond Gaza. Intelligence agencies tracked his name as shorthand for Hamas's resilience. Reports labeled him indispensable. In a conflict where individuals often vanished into obscurity, Sami defied the cycle. He mattered precisely because he refused to be replaceable. His assassination was therefore not just tactical, but symbolic. Removing Sami was a strike against the idea that Hamas's infrastructure was indestructible. To kill him was to send a message: even shadows have weaknesses, even ghosts can be cornered and eliminated. Sami mattered because his story revealed the paradox of the conflict. He was both villain and provider, both terrorist and lifeline, both destroyer and builder. To understand his significance is to understand why his death shook the region so deeply. Sami Ibrahimi's first serious brush with notoriety came in the late 1980s when he organized clandestine supply runs through Gaza's shifting network of alleys. Israeli patrols intercepted one such convoy, arresting him briefly. The charge was smuggling radios, maps, and contraband leaflets. The arrest did not break him, it sharpened him. Sami used the detention to study prison dynamics, observing which inmates commanded respect and which collapsed under interrogation. By the time of release, his reputation as a disciplined organizer had only grown. During the early 1990s, he was implicated in black market operations along the Rafah border. Cigarettes, medicine, and spare parts flowed through his hands. Authorities branded it criminal profiteering, but for Sami, it was strategic rehearsal, training for the subterranean economy he envisioned. His activities soon escalated to sabotage. Investigators linked him to crude explosive devices planted near military outposts. Though the bombs rarely inflicted casualties, they rattled soldiers' confidence. Each minor detonation was a symbolic victory, a message that Gaza's undercurrent of defiance was alive. Israeli forces arrested him again in 1993, this time on charges of aiding militants responsible for ambushes. In court, Sami remained impassive. Witnesses described him as eerily calm, almost detached, as if trial and sentence were inevitable steps toward larger destiny. Sami Ibrahimi's imprisonment in the mid-1990s was transformative. He endured harsh interrogations, solitary confinement, and alleged torture sessions designed to fracture loyalty. Yet instead of shattering him, captivity crystallized his resolve. He emerged hardened, carrying scars that became badges of legitimacy. Fellow prisoners later recalled his stoicism. He shared stories in whispers, never dramatizing pain but turning it into instruction. Torture, he argued, revealed the occupier's desperation. His calm endurance inspired younger inmates, transforming him into both teacher and symbol within the prison walls. Upon release, Sami carried with him not only physical trauma, but renewed authority. The rumors of his suffering magnified his legend outside. In Gaza's culture of resistance, endurance equaled credibility. The prison years became the foundation of his mythic stature. Upon release, Sami Ibrahimi wasted no time re-entering the underground struggle. He officially pledged allegiance to Hamas, which had matured from fledgling resistance to dominant force in Gaza. His reputation as a disciplined strategist positioned him as a valuable recruit immediately. Initially, Sami worked under senior commanders, managing logistics. He coordinated weapons shipments from Sinai, arranged safe houses, and monitored recruitment drives. Colleagues noted his patience. He did not rush for prominence but earned trust through competence, detail, and reliability. As his influence grew, he spearheaded specialized cells tasked with tunneling. These groups, operating with secrecy and crude tools, carved pathways under Gaza's shifting sands. What began as smuggling routes soon evolved into military lifelines, linking Hamas to external sponsors discreetly. Some accounts suggest Sami flirted with forming an independent faction. His pragmatism attracted followers frustrated by Hamas's internal debates. Yet he ultimately chose loyalty, believing fragmentation weakened the cause. His decision secured him respect from leadership, cementing his authority within Hamas ranks. By the early 2000s, Sami had transitioned from foot soldier to architect. He was no longer executing plans, he was designing them. His reputation rested not on public rhetoric, but on the unseen empire of logistics that underpinned Hamas's operational survival. By the mid-2000s, Sami Ibrahimi's networks had matured into arteries of conflict. His tunnels channeled not just medicine or fuel, but missiles, explosives, and trained fighters. Each underground passage represented defiance, transforming Gaza's sand into a shifting battlefield beneath Israel's defenses. Smuggling became an industry under his supervision. Iranian rockets dismantled and carried piece by piece were reassembled in hidden workshops. Kalashnikovs flowed through Sinai convoys, concealed among crates of onions. Every transaction bore Sami's invisible signature, orchestrated with methodical precision. Kidnapping became another tactic he sanctioned. The most infamous was the 2006 abduction of Israeli soldier Gilad Shalit, seized through a tunnel Sami had reportedly designed. The operation demonstrated Hamas's reach, boosting morale while terrifying Israeli command. Sami's influence was undeniable. Killings followed in escalating cycles. Militants trained under his watch executed ambushes on checkpoints and collaborators alike. Retaliation was swift, but Sami's networks absorbed the blows. For every raid dismantled, another sprung alive, as though resistance itself replicated through his organizational blueprint. Through smuggling, kidnappings, and killings, Sami shifted Hamas's posture. He transformed it from reactive insurgency into offensive force, a movement capable of shaping headlines and negotiations. His methods blurred lines between warfare and survival, embedding violence deep within Gaza's fragile lifelines. In 2001, Israeli intelligence traced a shipment of explosives smuggled through Rafah tunnels. Though several couriers were arrested, Sami Ibrahimi escaped unscathed. His name surfaced in interrogation transcripts, whispered as the unseen mastermind who coordinated movements without ever appearing on site. By 2004, his tunnels facilitated the infiltration that killed several Israeli soldiers near Kerem Shalom. Reports suggested the attack was rehearsed for weeks. The tunnel entrance was disguised as a chicken coop, blending rural simplicity with lethal ingenuity. Sami's imprint lingered. In 2006, the abduction of Gilad Shalit marked his strategic crescendo. Israeli sources confirmed the operation relied on tunnels Sami had designed years earlier. The soldier's captivity lasted 5 years, with his eventual release cementing Hamas's leverage in prisoner negotiations. The year 2008 brought Operation Cast Lead, Israel's large-scale assault on Gaza. Yet even amid bombings, Sami's networks functioned. Supplies moved beneath rubble, fighters relocated unseen. His empire demonstrated resilience, frustrating Israeli commanders who believed airstrikes could cripple Hamas's infrastructure decisively. By 2009, intelligence dossiers across capitals labeled him irreplaceable. His operational timeline was clear. Smuggling in 2001, ambushes in 2004, kidnapping in 2006, survival in 2008. Each milestone reinforced his legend as Hamas's invisible architect. Elimination became not optional, but inevitable. By 2010, Sami Ibrahimi's name occupied the highest tiers of Israel's most wanted lists. He was no longer a shadowy logistician, but a declared national threat. His tunnels, kidnappings, and weapons pipelines placed him alongside Hamas's most notorious leaders marked for elimination. Mossad dossiers described him as critical infrastructure in human form. Israeli generals concluded that his removal would deliver strategic paralysis to Hamas. He was not only hunted by Shin Bet domestically, but by international operatives coordinating across borders with surgical patience. The United States designated him a global terrorist under executive orders. Financial sanctions targeted his network of couriers and shell companies. Bank accounts were frozen, front businesses exposed. Yet despite constant surveillance, Sami adapted, always managing to remain one step ahead. European intelligence services circulated alerts about forged passports used by his operatives. Interpol files hinted at his movement through Cairo, Damascus, and even Istanbul. Each city became rumor-laden with sightings, though none confirmed. He thrived in ambiguity, a fugitive who embraced invisibility. Arab regimes were conflicted. Egypt monitored him closely, fearful of tunnels destabilizing Sinai. Jordan blocked his couriers, while Gulf states issued quiet warnings. Yet despite regional hostility, Hamas's patrons shielded him. Iran's Revolutionary Guard praised him openly, dubbing him the spine of resistance. Journalists painted him as myth. Some compared him to Carlos the Jackal or Imad Mughnieh, ghosts who haunted intelligence communities. The mystique of his untouchability only sharpened Israel's determination. Each year his legend grew. The circle of hunters surrounding him tightened. In Gaza, his image was celebrated on murals, his name chanted at rallies. To supporters, he symbolized endurance against overwhelming force. To adversaries, he was unfinished business, a reminder that the world's most advanced intelligence agencies had not yet caught him. By the dawn of the new decade, every actor understood the stakes. Sami Ibrahimi's survival challenged Israel's credibility. His continued presence emboldened Hamas and unsettled fragile regional balances. His fate was sealed not in question of if, but of when. The first credible attempt on Sami Ibrahimi's life occurred in 2002. An Israeli drone fired missiles at a safe house in Rafah. The building collapsed into dust, killing 2 aides. Sami escaped through a tunnel exit, crawling into darkness as explosions thundered above. In 2004, his convoy was ambushed near Khan Yunis. Intelligence had pinpointed his route, and helicopters unleashed machine gun fire. Yet his vehicle, a decoy, drew the assault while Sami slipped away disguised as a farmer guiding a donkey cart. Poison was tried next. In 2006, reports emerged that his tea was laced with slow-acting toxins. He fell gravely ill for weeks, his skin turning sallow, but survived with treatment smuggled from sympathetic doctors. The source of contamination was never conclusively identified. By 2007, Israel authorized a plan to strike him in Damascus, where he attended meetings with Hamas exiles. Surveillance tracked him entering a guest house, but the mission was aborted due to Syrian intelligence presence. Sami returned to Gaza, narrowly avoiding elimination abroad. Explosives were planted under a coastal road in 2008, timed for his evening drive. At the last moment, he switched vehicles with a junior commander. The blast tore the substitute car apart, killing the unsuspecting occupant while Sami again slipped away. Each attempt fed his legend. Supporters called him the man who death refused. Israeli officials seethed at his resilience, viewing his survival as humiliation. Each failure escalated the urgency. Mossad redoubled efforts, refining tactics, convinced his capture or assassination was inevitable. By 2009, his life was a constant state of vigilance. He shifted residences nightly, trusted only a handful of couriers, and traveled under layers of disguise. Yet the walls were closing in. Every failed attempt deepened the determination to strike successfully. By late 2009, Sami Ibrahimi carried the aura of a man marked. Every meal was tasted, every window covered, every visitor scrutinized. He trusted shadows more than people, yet even shadows betrayed him, his circle of safety shrinking with each passing month. Intelligence chatter suggested his days were numbered. Mossad operatives circulated in Europe, testing forged passports. Surveillance in Damascus, Cairo, and Doha tightened like a noose. For all his mastery of tunnels, there was no subterranean path out of fate. Whispers in Gaza echoed a prophecy: no leader escapes forever. Supporters painted murals of his image, while enemies quietly wagered on the date of his demise. His legend grew not because he lived, but because everyone knew he would die. The inevitability was cinematic, an invisible countdown, each tick louder. To Israel, his assassination was overdue justice. To Hamas, his potential death was looming martyrdom. To Sami himself, perhaps, it was destiny embraced. He had built an empire, but every empire falls. On January 16, 2010, operatives began landing in Dubai. Flights trickled in from Europe, Frankfurt, Paris, Zurich. Each traveler carried forged passports: Irish, British, German. Their names were real enough to pass scrutiny, yet entirely fabricated, ghosts slipping seamlessly through modern airports. The team numbered more than 24, men and women, each with cover stories: tourists, tennis enthusiasts, corporate consultants. Their luggage contained not weapons, but wigs, hats, and electronic gear. The art of the operation was invisibility, not force. Upon arrival, they dispersed. Some checked into luxury hotels near the marina. Others chose modest lodgings along Dera. Each move was designed to fragment suspicion. They communicated sparingly, using disposable phones, speaking only in clipped phrases rehearsed countless times. Rental cars were procured under aliases. Surveillance gear was unpacked discreetly: tiny cameras, lock override devices, frequency jammers. To outsiders, they looked like vacationers preparing for shopping excursions. In truth, every step aligned to a precise choreography designed months in advance. By nightfall, the operatives were in place. They had entered Dubai without detection, carrying not guns, but certainty. Somewhere in the city, Sami Ibrahimi believed he was beyond reach. The hunters had arrived, and the clock had begun. The operatives fanned out across Dubai's polished hotels, blending effortlessly with the city's steady stream of travelers. At the Al Bustan Rotana, 2 men checked in posing as businessmen. At the Jumeirah Beach Complex, a woman arrived as a tennis enthusiast. Their movements were deliberately mundane. They dined at buffets, ordered room service, and casually browsed lobby newspapers, yet every action masked surveillance. One pair trailed Sami from the airport. Another noted his routines at the hotel gym, capturing patterns invisibly. Hidden cameras were placed in corridors, disguised as door peepholes. Lock override devices tested silently on unoccupied rooms. Operatives practiced entry and exit drills, rehearsing the few seconds they would need to vanish after the mission was complete. Meanwhile, Sami lived unsuspectingly inside his hotel suite. He shopped at malls, attended discreet meetings, and returned each evening. He noticed no unusual presence, only the comfort of Dubai's gleaming anonymity. Around him, however, layers of watchers documented every breath. By January 18th, the operatives had charted his schedule with surgical precision. His comings and goings were logged down to minutes. The hunters no longer observed, they anticipated. The stage was set, and the invisible circle around him had quietly closed. Morning of January 19, 2010, unfolded like any other. Sami Ibrahimi left his hotel at 10:15 a.m., wearing a crisp white shirt and dark slacks. Surveillance teams followed discreetly, logging every movement, while others prepared tools that would finish the mission. He visited a nearby shopping center, purchasing modest items, shaving cream, new sandals, bottled water. To casual observers, he was a middle-aged traveler enjoying Dubai's luxuries. To Mossad operatives, each purchase confirmed his comfort, his unawareness of the closing net. At 2:00 p.m., he met briefly with two associates in a cafe near Dera. The operatives, disguised as tourists with cameras, captured footage. The meeting was innocuous, light conversation, small gestures, but for intelligence, it confirmed Sami's exact state of mind, relaxed. By late afternoon, he returned to the Al Bustan Rotana. A surveillance team already inside the lobby shadowed him to the elevator. Simultaneously, another unit slipped upstairs, occupying adjacent rooms. Their mission clock had begun ticking inexorably toward a single violent moment. At 6:32 p.m., Sami entered his suite alone. Within minutes, the operatives were ready. Disguised technicians lingered in hallways. A woman pretended to fumble with her door key, and lookouts monitored security staff movements. Every player assumed position with military precision. The evening deepened. Dubai glittered with commerce and leisure, but in one corner of the city, an invisible operation reached climax. Sami prepared for rest, oblivious to eyes watching through cameras, ears attuned to his every step. The hunters were poised. The operatives carried no firearms. Their arsenal was subtler: electronic lockpicks, miniature cameras, silenced communication devices, and medical-grade substances capable of inducing death without trace. Each item was selected to vanish into luggage, passing airport checks as ordinary belongings. Their lock override tools were masterpieces of precision. Shaped like keycards, they bypassed hotel door systems in seconds. Within the room, a jammer disrupted surveillance feeds, ensuring that any later review of CCTV would show nothing but static haze. For restraint, they carried zip ties designed to snap silently into place. Disguises were equally crucial. Wigs, glasses, and mustaches transformed operatives into forgettable silhouettes. Even cleaning staff would not remember their faces once the mission reached completion. The killing method chosen reflected calculated subtlety. A fast-acting muscle relaxant, injected at the base of the neck, would paralyze without leaving clear forensic evidence. The victim would appear to suffer sudden cardiac arrest, a natural death in an unnatural context. Every tool was expendable. Once used, it would vanish, burned, discarded, or repurposed beyond recognition. Mossad's philosophy was simple. The fewer traces left, the more successful the operation. Efficiency was not measured by body count, but by absence of fingerprints. The operation unfolded with cinematic tension. A maid nearly entered the hallway at the wrong moment, her keycard poised. One operative coughed loudly, distracting her, sending her back downstairs. A near exposure avoided by improvisation, the mission teetered, but endured. Another close call came when Sami unexpectedly ordered room service. A waiter approached his door, tray balanced with fruit and tea. An operative intercepted him, feigning drunkenness, stumbling into the hallway, buying precious seconds until the delivery was redirected elsewhere. Inside their rooms, operatives whispered only in fragments. Every creak of the corridor felt amplified, every knock a possible collapse. The luxury hotel, with its calm carpets and golden light, had become a pressure chamber of espionage suspense. For hours, tension stretched like wire. One slip, One camera failure, one suspicious glance, and the entire mission would dissolve into scandal. Yet patience held. Each operative knew the script by heart. The scene was written, only the act remained. At 8:24 p.m., the operatives entered. The lock yielded silently. Sami Ibrahimi looked up in confusion, but within seconds, he was restrained. No shouting, no chaos, only muffled motion, as if the hotel walls absorbed the sudden violence inside. A syringe pierced the base of his neck. The toxin acted instantly, muscles locking, breath stuttering. His eyes widened, recognition flickering. He knew what this was, yet he could neither scream nor resist. Death arrived clinically, like procedure. The operatives laid him carefully on the bed, arranging the sheets as though he had collapsed naturally. His shoes were removed, belongings placed in order. They left water by the bedside, staging the scene as sudden cardiac arrest. By 8:34 p.m., they were gone. The room looked untouched, air conditioning still humming. Outside, Dubai's neon shimmered across glass towers. Inside, the empire of tunnels, smuggling, and shadows ended with eerie silence. The ghost of Gaza was dead. The next morning, January 20th, hotel staff grew concerned when Sami Ibrahimi failed to check out. A maid entered his suite at 11:15 a.m., expecting routine departure. Instead, she found him lying still on the bed, unresponsive, eyes half open. At first glance, nothing seemed suspicious. No forced entry, no overturned furniture, no spilled luggage. His clothes were neatly folded, his belongings in order. The maid assumed natural causes, calling hotel management, who quickly summoned medical personnel to the scene. Doctors arrived within minutes. Pulse was absent, skin cool, body rigid. They declared death by apparent heart failure. Paperwork was filed swiftly, the body covered discreetly, and the hotel attempted to shield guests from any disruptive spectacle of tragedy. Yet murmurs spread instantly. A man of his stature dying suddenly in Dubai was never going to pass as coincidence. Whispers raced through Palestinian circles, Israeli analysts, and Arab diplomats. A corpse in a luxury suite had detonated geopolitical shockwaves. When the body was transferred to Dubai's forensic department, suspicion deepened. Initial examination showed no obvious trauma, yet inconsistencies emerged. Bruises near the neck suggested restraint. Toxicology samples were taken, the results raising more questions than answers. Heart failure no longer seemed sufficient. Medical investigators noted puncture-like marks at the base of his neck. While subtle, they indicated injection. Traces of muscle relaxants surfaced in blood tests, compounds rarely associated with natural death. The possibility of deliberate poisoning became impossible to ignore. Dubai authorities announced their findings cautiously. They suggested Ibrahimi's death was not natural, but criminal. A wave of speculation rippled outward. Intelligence services across the globe leaned forward. This was no accident but assassination masked with surgical elegance. The autopsy shifted the narrative. A man once thought dead by fate was now declared murdered. This revelation forced Dubai, proud of its reputation for safety, into the unwanted role of crime scene host. Forensic details confirmed what whispers already believed. Mossad had struck. Dubai police scoured hotel security footage, expecting routine clarity. Instead, they uncovered a labyrinth of shadows. Dozens of suspects appeared, entering and leaving hotels, changing disguises, switching vehicles. Their movements overlapped seamlessly, like dancers in a choreography designed to confuse observers. CCTV revealed operatives tailing Sami from airport to hotel. Some wore tennis outfits, others business suits. A woman in a wig lingered outside elevators. Faces were ordinary, yet collectively uncanny, each blending into the city's anonymous stream of visitors. When investigators cross-checked passports, the scandal erupted. The documents, Irish, British, German, French, looked authentic but were forged. Worse, they mirrored identities of real citizens, whose names had been hijacked without knowledge. Governments demanded answers, furious at their nationals' identities weaponized abroad. British authorities summoned Israeli diplomats, calling it an abuse of trust. Ireland condemned the misuse of its citizens' documents. Germany threatened repercussions. Europe's outrage was sharp, not only for the crime itself, but for the reckless violation of sovereign credibility in international travel. Dubai released footage publicly, broadcasting the suspect's disguises worldwide. The images became infamous: wigs, baseball caps, mustaches. For the first time, Mossad's operatives were unmasked, not by capture but by camera, frozen forever in grainy snapshots of espionage theater. The diplomatic backlash was immediate. European capitals erupted in protest, summoning Israeli ambassadors for explanations. London denounced the passport forgeries as unacceptable violations of sovereignty. Dublin accused Israel of endangering its citizens abroad. Germany, typically measured, expressed rare outrage at the brazen manipulation of identity. Israel neither confirmed nor denied involvement. Officials cloaked themselves in practiced ambiguity, invoking national security. Privately, analysts admitted the scandal risked straining alliances, yet few doubted Mossad's hand. Silence became confession, a policy that both enraged and fascinated the international press. Dubai escalated the matter. Authorities published names, footage, and reconstructed movements of the hit squad. The Emirates sought Interpol warrants, positioning itself as victim of foreign intrusion. Its leadership feared reputational damage, branding the assassination an affront to its neutrality. Arab states seized the moment, condemning Israel loudly. Iran declared Sami a martyr, vowing retaliation. Qatar amplified rhetoric, while Egypt walked cautiously, balancing public outrage with private relief at Hamas's weakened position. Every capital twisted the event to its own political script. Yet beneath the noise, admiration lingered. Intelligence services across continents studied the operation's precision. For some, Mossad's scandal was simultaneously humiliation and masterclass. A man was eliminated cleanly, globally exposed afterward, proof that espionage's reach could pierce even Dubai's glittering facade. Behind the assassination lay an invisible architecture, the phantom bureaucracy of espionage. Mossad's operation was not improvised, but bureaucratically engineered. Files approved, budgets signed, logistics coordinated. A shadow government existed within government, operating with paperwork as cold and final as bullets. This bureaucracy thrived on silence. It left no speeches, no public decrees, only authorizations buried in secure vaults. Its agents did not march in parades. They filled out forms under aliases, their triumphs filed as sterile mission codes. Every bureaucracy has offices, but this one was a ghost empire. Its halls were rented apartments, its desks hotel rooms, its archives encrypted drives. Unlike ministries of education or health, this ministry dealt exclusively in deception, sabotage, and death. To outsiders, the operation looked cinematic. To insiders, it was routine. Requisition requests, forged travel documents, expense reports for wigs and lockpicks. Death was managed with bureaucratic neatness. Assassinations logged alongside airfare and hotel receipts. Murder as paperwork, signed in triplicate. It was this phantom bureaucracy that gave Mossad its endurance. Leaders changed, politics shifted, but the machine endured. Anonymous, efficient, unfeeling. Sami Ibrahimi did not fall to one man's vendetta, but to a system, a shadow empire more permanent than any target. Behind the bureaucracy were the invisible legions, Mossad's elite units, whispered about like modern myth. Kidon, the strike arm, specialized in assassinations abroad. To intelligence lore, they were shapeshifters, ghosts able to vanish in airports, shopping malls, or hotel corridors. Each operative was profiled like archetype. The watcher, patient with surveillance. The ghost, master of disguise. The technician, carrying death inside briefcases of wires and syringes. Together, they formed a living mosaic of precision, anonymity, and ruthless execution. To the public, their faces were grainy CCTV stills. To allies, they were necessary evils. To enemies, they were nightmares whispered into children's ears. These legions existed without parades, decorations, or memorials, only legends stitched together by rumor and fear. They were nameless, faceless, interchangeable, yet their actions shaped borders, toppled leaders, silenced voices. Their presence in Dubai was confirmation that shadows had armies. Mossad's invisible legions moved like whispers in history, leaving corpses and questions as their only monuments. The Dubai operation was not Mossad's first dance with shadows. Decades earlier, in Lillehammer, Norway, agents killed the wrong man, mistaking a Moroccan waiter for a Black September operative. The mission unraveled publicly, a chilling reminder that perfection could collapse into tragedy. In Beirut, 1973, Israeli commandos stormed coastal villas, eliminating senior PLO leaders. The raid was cinematic. Speedboats on moonlit waters, assassins in disguise. Its aftermath left bloodied apartments and shattered families, a scene that still lingers like a noir vignette of vengeance. More recently, in Damascus 2008, Imad Mughniyeh met his end when a car bomb detonated silently under his SUV seat. Syrian streets became theater, the explosion echoing through intelligence circles. Mossad never admitted responsibility, but the choreography bore unmistakable fingerprints. These echoes haunted Dubai investigators. Each mission carried the same trademarks: patience, precision, and calculated deniability. Mossad's operations were stories half told, endings without closure, deaths staged like riddles. The killing of Sami Ibrahimi was not anomaly, but continuation of an old perfected craft. Each operation was a page torn from an espionage novel, except real blood stained the margins. Dubai was only the latest chapter, another city joining the map of places where shadows wrote history with silence and sudden violence. Above the operatives and the phantom bureaucracy sat the gods behind the curtain, politicians who never touched the weapons but signed the orders. Prime ministers and defense ministers, flawed and calculating, moved pieces across invisible boards where lives were expendable. They acted like puppet masters yet feared their own strings. Success bolstered their image, failure haunted their legacies. For them, Sami Ibrahimi's death was neither personal nor emotional. It was arithmetic, a subtraction to rebalance equations of power. In shadows, gods bleed humanity. When Sami Ibrahimi's body was returned to Gaza, thousands filled the streets. His coffin, draped in green flags, was carried shoulder-high through alleys where children once played. The crowd wept, wailed, and chanted his name as martyr, engineer, and ghost. The funeral became both ritual and rally. Hamas leaders praised his endurance, promising vengeance. Ordinary Gazans mourned not only a man but the lifelines he had created, tunnels that carried food, hope, and defiance. The procession was both grief and resistance embodied. Internationally, reactions split sharply. Iran declared him a hero slain by Zionist treachery. Western capitals repeated their condemnations of terrorism, yet tracked the unrest nervously. Israel remained silent, its officials neither confirming nor denying, satisfied that silence spoke loudest. The immediate impact was electric. Hamas vowed retaliation, recruitment surged, and murals of Sami spread across Gaza's walls. His death was not quiet closure, it was ignition, proof that martyrdom could outlive flesh, continuing underground like the tunnels he once commanded. In the years following his assassination, Sami Ibrahimi's absence reshaped Hamas. Without his logistical genius, tunnels became less reliable, smuggling routes fragmented, and internal factions quarreled over resources. The underground empire he built endured, but its efficiency dimmed without his obsessive oversight. Israel claimed strategic victory, arguing that his removal crippled Hamas's infrastructure. Yet the vacuum also birthed new leaders, younger and more reckless, who sought to prove themselves through escalations. Assassination removed stability, but fertilized volatility, ensuring the conflict did not end, only mutated. Internationally, his death reinforced perceptions of Mossad's reach. States adjusted policies cautiously, knowing their enemies might vanish in hotel rooms far from battlefields. Dubai, determined to protect its global reputation, tightened surveillance, forever haunted by the specter of his death. For Gaza's people, Sami became both legend and cautionary tale. His image adorned walls, but his absence deepened hardship. In killing him, Israel did not dismantle resistance. It transformed him into symbol, fueling narratives of resilience that endure long after the tunnels collapsed. In the end, Sami Ibrahimi's death changed little in the grand scheme of geopolitics. The conflict raged on, tunnels reopened, rockets still flew. Yet his assassination revealed the hidden machinery of modern war, bureaucracies that authorize silence, and killers who vanish in plain sight. Assassination is not justice, nor victory, it is message. Ibrahimi's fall in Dubai proved that shadows govern as surely as parliaments. His ghost lingers, not in tunnels, but in the uneasy truth. States wield power not only with armies, but with men who erase history, one body at a time.